Hello everybody, and welcome to this video. I am going to make a video today for my Bible study methods classes, or I suppose a Bible survey class, or even a theology class, on how to do a word study. So, since this is a general view for online students, as well as traditional students who have me in class, I'm teaching general things, and in all situations, you probably should look at whatever the assignment handout is for actual specifics. But I did want to demonstrate how you might do a word study. So, you can do this with maybe another screen open, or if you're going to do this on your phone, I'd say feel free to do this right along with me. But the first thing that we're going to do is we have a passage. And so here I found one in the book of Ephesians. And I'm looking at Ephesians 2:11 through 22. Let me move myself off to the right here. Therefore, remember that you are at one time Gentiles in the flesh, called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, which is made in the flesh by hands. Odd kind of thing, but Paul often pictures us as people who are outside the Jewish covenant, and we were uncircumcised, meaning we were not part of the covenant group. Circumcision was a way to show that you were in the group of Jews in the Old Testament, and anybody who was not Jewish would never be circumcised. It was kind of this odd thing that they did to symbolize being part of the Abrahamic covenant. And we, at one time, were not part of that covenant. But here's the passage I want us to study. Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenant of promise. Let's just say we wanted to study these ideas of alienated and strangers. So if you want to do a word study on these words, obviously you could pick up an English dictionary, but an English dictionary wouldn't help you very much. It would just define those words in the English text, but we want to find out the Greek, or if we're in the Old Testament, the Hebrew. So let's do a quick word study, and the first thing that you're going to need to do, and I'll kind of move this screen up, is you're going to want to go to Bible Hub. Let's go to BibleHub.com, and we'll just start this from the very beginning, BibleHub.com. Good. From BibleHub.com, you have to look up a specific passage. You can't look up multiple verses, otherwise you can't change to the interlinear. So you need to look at the precise verse that you want to do a word study in. And for ours, it's Ephesians 2:12. So on Bible Hub up here in the search browser, I'm going to type Ephesians 2:12, and I'm going to bring up the passage now. And so as you can see, the passage is here. Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ. Excluded is the NIV. The ESV's version, by the way, was alienated. Good. So let's go ahead and see here. Let's go up to the interlinear. If you're on your phone, it should say just be an I, but if you have a browser up on a computer, you might get the whole word interlinear or interlin. And an interlinear is basically the Greek and the English next to each other. And by the way, you cannot get to this screen if on the previous screen you had multiple verses up at once. The interlinear will not let you do that unless you're looking at one verse specifically. But now that we're here, I have in this black middle here, I've got the Greek, and I can see the Greek words here, but I also have the English and the orange underneath it. Underneath that, I have the blue, and if you hover the mouse over it, it's telling you what this word is. This word, hati, is a conjunction. This next word is a verb, imperfect, indicative, active, second person, plural. It's basically conjugating every word you might find. Now, that might not be particularly interesting, but the blue up here shows you the Greek word, and if you click on it, you can begin your word study. So basically, we were interested in this idea of alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and I'm going to choose the word strangers, which looks like xenoi. So I'm going to click on this blue word xenoi, and now what happens is I have xenoi right here. I have 4 occurrences where this exact conjugation fits. So exactly this conjugation is here, but over on the right-hand side, you can see that there are actually 14 occurrences. On the left, it says 4, because the 4 is following the specific conjugation of the word, but if you just focus on the root and you look at all these other, all these other conjugations, there's plenty more to look at over here. And in fact, there's even additional entries. So the way this thing works is they keep track of all the different ways a word might be conjugated. I guess if you've taken Spanish, you would understand that because, one word can be conjugated into many different. So like the first person, I run, you run, he runs. Runs is technically a different conjugation. Similarly, in the past tense, the word go becomes went. These are two different words, go and went, but they really are following kind of the same verbal idea. Similarly, we have over here xenoi, which is, I believe, a plural form of the root word over here, xene. So anyway, now that we're to this screen, sorry to nerd out on you for a second, we have all the places that it occurs. In this exact conjugation, but if you clicked 14 occurrences, we'll see all the places the root word here is appearing, and you can see how it's translated in the orange. Now, for a word study, it's not particularly important how an English translation does this. You're going to want to go to each of these passages, the Matthew 25 passage, the Matthew 27, the Acts 17, and you're going to want to take a few verses before and a few verses after, and you're going to want to make your own translation. You're going to want to figure out what words should be there, and not just to tell me what words should be there, because it's probably strangers or aliens or something like that, but you're going to want to really unpack what that means. In this passage, strangers means people who are not Jewish. In this passage, strangers means people who did not know Jesus Christ, because and you might need to explain why, because he's putting next to each other people who knew Jesus and acted in a certain way and people who were ignorant of him. So thus, in our passage, xenoi means people who do not have personal knowledge and people who don't have head knowledge. That's kind of what I'm looking for what we call semantic range. Going through each of the passages and figuring out what the word meant and seeing, after you've done that, all the different things a word might mean. So another kind of thing to look at over here with me is let's go back up to the top here. And up at the top, you can see summary, NASEC, Thayer's, Strong's, and Englishman's. These four are dictionaries, and here's the summary. And so if you click under the summary, again, you're going to see the places the word occurs here in the far right, but you're also going to see it's an adjective. The transliteration is xenos. There's a definition, but if you scroll down, here is a summary of what all the different works say about it. This doesn't really appear to be very helpful, forms and transliterations, but host and stranger is the Strong's exhaustive concordance. But here's a real interesting, thick kind of definition. So for word studies, depending on what class you're in, I'm probably going to want you to find the Greek word. I'm going to want you to find the transliterated word, and if you didn't see that, here's the Greek word, xenos. Xenos right here. But also the transliterated word would be just with the English alphabet, xenos. I'm probably going to ask you for all the places it occurs. And, for this word example, here's a bunch of places. I'm going to want you to go through each of these passages and build semantic range, follow my example. And I'm probably going to want you to consult the Bible Hub dictionaries, and there's some right here. And I don't want you just to go copy, paste. I want you to read these and probably synthesize this in your own words. And depending on which word you are studying will depend on how much information there is. For example, if your word is grace, or your word is death, or your word is mercy, or humility even, you might find that there's like 40 or 50 places this word occurs, and so the definitions tend to be really long, so there's going to be a lot of synthesis work. It's possible that you do a word study on a word that only occurs once. Paul makes up a lot of words, and so sometimes there isn't much of a dictionary entry for them. And other times you're going to look up a word, and on the left-hand column, you're going to see that there's only one occurrence. But if you look on the right-hand column, it might say like 15. And remember, that's because this might be the one place with this specific conjugation, but the word itself is used many times. So this is basically in a nutshell how you do a word study. We can find definitions here, we can find passages, and you can build semantic range. And remember, we do all of this, the most important part is so you can come back to our passage, whatever passage our class is studying, and you can see our word, and now that you know how it's been used other places, the definitions it has, I'm not looking for you just to copy what the dictionaries say, but do some critical thinking. Based on all these things the word might mean and these other passages, come back to the studied passage and tell me what our word means in context. And if you want to do a super good job, is this like other passages? So you might come into a passage like Ephesians 2:12 and say, our word here is xenos. Xenos usually means stranger or foreigner. It has this tradition in the Old Testament of being about foreigners, meaning Gentiles. And in some other instances, xenos can just be a stranger or somebody who does not know the person in question. In our passage, Ephesians, it's specifically talking about Gentiles, ethnically people not part of Israel. I know this because this was set up already in verse 11 and verse 13, because it's talking about covenant. And our passage is most like maybe Colossians chapter 2, where Paul uses the same word in a similar context to talk about how we were not only separated from Christ by sin, but also separated by covenant. Thus, xenos in this passage means Gentile, foreigner, not part of God's Old Testament promises. That's how you sound. Super smart. So this is basically a word study in a nutshell. Depending on your class, if you're online or on campus, there might be different passages or word options. But basically, I need you to go to Bible Hub. I need you to get to interlinear. I need you to find your Greek word, click on it. I need you to find all the places it occurs. I'm going to need you to have the transliterated word as well as the Greek word. I'm going to need you to record probably things off of Bible Hub, the dictionary stuff. But depending on if you're on campus or not, I might have you go to the library as well. Make sure you do a works cited page, and make sure that last paragraph where it's focused on my word in this passage means that you sound smart. Okay? This is a great way to kind of bypass knowing Greek or Hebrew. You can kind of just use the resources and kind of make up your own definitions according to your own investigation and research. Great job, everybody. I'll talk to you later.